One day in a small town on the edge of the mountains, in the middle of winter, an inexplicable and terrible thing happened. Every night there was an incredible silence around the house on the street corner. It seemed as if every living thing stopped, and even the wind itself stopped blowing. The people of the town could not understand what was happening, and began to be afraid to go out at night. But one day a young man named John decided to find out what was going on. He went outside at night and saw that all the trees, buildings and cars around the house had stopped, as if time had stopped. And only around the house on the corner was there any movement. John decided to walk closer and realized that there was something written in blood on the wall of the house. He immediately realized it was something mystical, so he decided to go home. But now he already knew that every night something scary and unexplainable was happening around the house on the corner. The next night, John went back outside with his camera and started filming everything that was going on. There was some strange energy around the corner house that he could not explain in any way. He felt something was following him, but he kept filming. After he got home, he started looking at the video and saw something horrible on it. There were hand marks and blood on the wall of the house that started to move on their own. John was horrified by what he saw and could not understand what was happening. He decided to share the video with his friends so they could see what was going on around the house on the corner. But when he sent the video to his friends, they had something scary happen. They began to see the same things that John saw on the street at night. And every night more and more. Their friends began to have more and more strange dreams. In their dreams they saw the same things that they had seen in John's video, but now this bloody writing began to speak to them. Every night they heard voices asking them to come outside and find out the truth. The friends were frightened and didn't know what to do. They decided to seek help from a local psychic who could do the occult. The psychic listened to their story and decided to help them. He offered to perform a ritual to exorcise the evil spirit that dwelt around the house on the corner. The friends agreed, but were terrified of what might happen. The ritual began, and the psychic used his knowledge to summon the spirits. Suddenly everything began to shake, and the friends heard voices coming from everywhere. They asked the spirits to leave their place and not disturb people. Suddenly everything went quiet, and the friends realized that they had overcome evil. They decided not to tell anyone about it so as not to draw unnecessary attention to themselves. But they would never forget the story and would always remember that there are things in the world that cannot be explained rationally. After the ritual incident, the friends began to notice inexplicable things happening in their lives. They felt as if they were being watched, something watching their every move. Their dreams became even more bizarre and creepy, and sometimes they seemed to come true. Once, in one such dream, John saw his friends disappearing one by one. He realized it was a dream, but he couldn't wake up from it. When he was left alone, he heard a voice say, "You're next." John cried out and woke up in a cold sweat. He decided to share his fears with his friends, but they did not take him seriously. Each of them found some explanation for all the events that were happening. They said it was just coincidence or their imagination. But John knew it wasn't. He began searching for information about the place where they had performed the ritual, and found that it was the scene of a terrible crime many years ago. Several people had been killed that day, and the bodies were never found. John decided that their lives were in danger because they had attracted the attention of spirits who were looking for a victim for their revenge. The friends began to realize that John was right. They decided to find a way to get rid of this threat. They turned to an expert in the occult who helped them create amulets to protect them from the spirits. The friends carried those amulets with them at all times and tried not to draw attention to themselves. And despite all their fears and misgivings, they lived happily ever after. But they will never forget what happened, and they will always remember that there are things in this world that cannot be explained. Years later, however, one of the friends who had participated in the ritual returned to the house where they had performed their ritual. He wanted to reconnect with the spirits and find answers to his questions. He performed another ritual and was sure nothing had happened. But a few days after the ritual, he began to notice that something was wrong. He often heard noises and sounds that he had not noticed before. He had dreams in which he was haunted by shadows and unknown figures. Eventually, he began to notice that his life was becoming increasingly strange and inexplicable. He asked his friends who were with him the day they performed the ritual for help. But they all refused to help him. They knew it was dangerous, and they wanted nothing to do with it. After a while, he disappeared, and his body was found in the same house where they had performed the ritual. He was found dead, with sharp marks on his neck. But the strange thing was that no signs of violence or violent death were found on the body. The friends were horrified, but it was clear to them that this was a consequence of what they had done the day they performed the ritual. They understood that from now on their lives would be closely tied to mystical and mysterious forces, and that they could not put the past behind them and forget what had happened. The friends decided that they needed to find a way to break the connection with the mystical world so that they would never put themselves in danger again. They began to investigate the mysteries of ancient rituals and seek any information that would help them find a way to break the connection with the mystical forces. They spent many hours researching ancient books and manuscripts, but found nothing that would help them. They turned to psychics and magicians, but they were all useless. But one day, as one of the friends was walking through the dark streets of the city, he heard a strange sound. The sound was faint, but he heard it. He went in the direction of the sound, and it led him to a small antique store. He entered the store, and saw an ancient book on the shelf. The book was covered with dust and looked very ancient. He began reading the book and found a page that described a ritual he and his friends had performed many years ago. But this page also described a way to break the connection with the mystical world. The friends got together and performed a new ritual, using the method described in the book to break the connection. The ritual seemed to work, and they were no longer exposed to the mysterious and terrible forces of the mystical world. But they never forgot that lesson. They learned that the mystical world exists, and that it cannot be ignored. They are more cautious and more circumspect to avoid similar dangers in the future. After severing the connection to the mystical world, the friends felt much calmer and safer. They decided to never interfere in mystical matters again and to live a quiet life. However, a few years later, one of the friends began to notice strange things happening around him. He saw shadows following him, heard whispers and felt the presence of mysterious powers around him. He began searching for answers to his questions, and found mention of a mystical artifact that could summon spirits. He decided that this artifact might be related to his strange perceptions. He began searching for the artifact and finally found it in an old neglected manor house on the outskirts of town. The artifact was covered in dust and looked very old. But when he took it in his hands, he felt a strange power engulf his body. He realized it was a mistake, but it was too late. He had been consumed by the mystical power and had become its slave. He could not get rid of this mysterious power, and his friends did not know how to help him. They began to research and found a description of a way that could help them break their bond with the mystical power. They decided to perform this ritual and try to summon a spirit to ask it to help them save their friend. But instead they summoned a demon who took control and began to exterminate them one by one. The friends were unable to defend themselves and died before they could break their connection to the mystical world. The story turned tragic and was a warning that the mystical world can be very dangerous and unpredictable.